The deep space station called Peaceful Accord floated quietly in the dark between stars. Its white metal walls gleamed under the soft lights inside. Commander Hyunwoo walked down the main corridor, his blue uniform clean and pressed. He carried a data pad in his four-fingered hand. Today would change everything, though he did not know it yet. Hyunwoo belonged to the Altarian race. His people were tall and thin with pale blue skin. They had large eyes that could see many colors humans could not. Like most beings in the galaxy, Altarians loved peace. They spent their time making art and studying the stars. War was something they read about in very old history books. The Galactic Intelligence Council had built this station to watch for new life in the universe. 12 different alien races worked together here. They all shared the same dream, to find new friends among the stars. Every species they had met before was peaceful and kind. They expected any new race would be the same. Hyunwoo entered the main research room. 3 of his team members were already there, working at their computers. The room had large windows showing the stars outside. Screens covered the walls, showing data from across the galaxy. Bo-Ram looked up from her station. She was a Zenthari, a race that looked like tall, thin humans but with silver skin and no hair. Her people were the best at understanding languages and communication. "Good morning, Commander," she said in her musical voice. "The long-range sensors picked up something interesting last night." "What kind of something?" Hyunwoo asked, walking over to her screen. "Radio signals from a small blue planet in the outer rim," Bo-Ram replied. Her fingers danced over the controls. "The signals are very complex, much more advanced than we expected from that region." Tae-min, the team's cultural expert, spun around in his chair. He was a Valerian, short and round with thick gray fur covering his body. His people loved to study how different races lived and thought. "The mathematical patterns in the signals suggest high intelligence," he said, his voice deep and warm. "This could be our first major discovery in decades." So Young stood up from her corner workstation. She was tall and graceful, with dark green skin and long arms. Her people, the Kethalari, were known for being very logical and calm. They helped solve problems between different races. "I have been analyzing their technology level," she said. "They appear to use electromagnetic radiation for long-distance communication. Very clever." Hyunwoo felt excitement growing in his chest. Finding a new, intelligent race was every researcher's dream. "Show me what we have," he ordered. Bo-Ram pressed several buttons. The main wall screen lit up with waves of data. "Most of the signals seem to be entertainment broadcasts," she explained. "Music, stories, educational programs, very similar to what our own people enjoy." The team watched as images flashed on the screen. They saw creatures that looked somewhat like Valerians, but taller and with less fur. These beings, humans, were shown making beautiful music, creating art, and teaching their young. Children played in green fields under a yellow sun. Families gathered around tables sharing food. "They seem very peaceful," Tae-min said, nodding approvingly. "Look how gently they treat their offspring, and their art shows great creativity." So Young studied the images carefully. "Their cities are well organized. They appear to live in harmony with their natural environment. These beings could make excellent members of our galactic community." Hyunwoo smiled. This was exactly what they hoped to find. Another race that valued peace and cooperation. "Begin full cultural analysis," he ordered. "I want to know everything about these, what do they call themselves? Humans." Boram replied. They call themselves humans. The team worked for hours, downloading and studying human broadcasts. They saw documentaries about animals, shows about cooking, and programs about science. Everything seemed wonderful. These humans appeared to love learning and creating, just like every other intelligent race they knew. Late in the day, a young researcher named Ji-hoon rushed into the room. He was also Altarian, but much younger than Hyun-woo. His skin was darker blue and his movements quick and nervous. "Commander," he said, breathing hard, "I think I made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Hyun-woo asked, looking up from his reports. Ji-hoon's hands shook as he held up his datapad. "I was trying to get clearer signals from the human planet. I thought I was accessing their public broadcast network, but I think I connected to something else by accident." "Show me," Hyun-woo ordered. Ji-hoon connected his pad to the main screen. New images appeared. But these were very different from what they had seen before. The pictures were in black and white, grainy and hard to see clearly. They showed humans, but not the peaceful, happy humans from earlier. These humans were in muddy holes in the ground. They wore thick clothing and metal helmets. Some carried long metal objects that looked like tools. But as the team watched, they realized these were not tools for building or farming. "What are they doing?" Boram asked, her musical voice now uncertain. The images showed humans pointing their metal objects at other humans. Bright flashes came from the ends of the objects. Other humans fell down and did not get up again. Some cried out, though there was no sound with these old pictures. So Young stepped closer to the screen. Are they hurting each other?" More images followed. Humans in large groups, all carrying the metal objects. They moved across open ground while bright flashes came from hidden positions. Many humans fell. The muddy ground became darker. Tae-min made a choking sound. His furry face had gone pale. "This cannot be real," he whispered. No intelligent race would do this to their own kind. But the images kept coming. Humans throwing small round objects that exploded. Humans operating large metal machines that shot bigger projectiles across great distances. Humans lying still in the mud, no longer moving. "Ji-hoon," Hyun-woo said, his voice barely steady. "What exactly did you access?" The young researcher looked at his pad with shaking hands. The file names mentioned something called military archives and historical combat footage. "Commander, I think we are looking at humans fighting wars." The word war hit the room like a cold wind. None of the galactic races had fought a real war in thousands of years. The concept was almost forgotten, something from the dark early days of civilization. But why? So Young asked. Why would they hurt their own species? No one had an answer. They stood in silence, watching more terrible images flash across the screen. Humans with weapons, humans falling, humans dying in the mud. Hyun-woo realized that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. These were not peaceful artists and teachers. These beings knew how to kill each other, and from what he could see, they were very good at it. "Shut it off," he ordered quietly. The screen went dark, but the images remained burned in their minds. The discovery they had celebrated that morning now felt like a nightmare. They had found new life among the stars, but it was life that knew war. Outside the station, the stars continued to shine peacefully, unaware that everything had changed. The next morning came too soon for Hyun-woo. He had not slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, He saw those terrible images of humans hurting each other. He hoped it had been a bad dream, but when he entered the research room, the dark screen reminded him it was all real. His team was already there, but they looked different. Bo Ram sat very still at her station, her silver skin pale. Taemin kept his furry head down, not making eye contact with anyone. So Young stood by the window, staring out at the stars as if looking for answers. "Have you found any more information about what we saw yesterday?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. Ji-hoon nodded, his blue skin even darker than usual. "I spent all night going through the files. Commander, what we saw was just a small part. There are thousands of hours of similar recordings." "From the same time period?" Hyunwoo hoped maybe it was just one terrible moment in human history. "No, sir," Ji-hoon replied, shaking his head. "The files go back hundreds of their years, and forward too. It seems like humans have been fighting wars for a very long time." Bo Ram finally spoke, her musical voice now flat and tired. "I translated some of the text files that came with the images. They call what we saw World War I. The word world suggests it involved their entire planet. Their entire planet fought in one war?" So Young turned from the window, her green face shocked. "How is that possible?" "Show us more," Hyunwoo ordered, though part of him did not want to see. Ji-hoon brought up new images on the main screen. These showed the same muddy holes in the ground, but now the team could see them more clearly. The holes were long lines that stretched as far as the eye could see. Humans lived in these holes, which they called trenches. They dug these specifically for fighting, Taemin said, reading from his data pad. The trenches protected them from enemy weapons while they tried to attack the trenches on the other side. The images showed humans climbing out of their trenches and running across open ground toward other trenches. Most of them fell before they could reach the other side. The ground between the trenches was covered with metal wire, twisted into sharp points. They called this area No Man's Land, Bo Ram translated. Thousands of humans died trying to cross these spaces. So Young made a sound like she was going to be sick. They knew most of them would die, but they kept trying anyway. According to these records, yes, Ji-hoon confirmed. The same attacks happened over and over, sometimes for months. More images appeared. Humans wore masks over their faces while yellow and green clouds drifted across the battlefield. Where the clouds touched, humans fell down, coughing and choking. "What is that?" Hyunwoo asked, though he feared the answer. "Chemical weapons," Taemin read from his notes. "They created poisonous gases to use against each other. The masks were supposed to protect them, but often they did not work." So Young ran from the room. They could hear her being sick in the hallway. Her people, the Kethlari, had never experienced anything like this. Their worst conflicts were solved by talking and compromise. The idea of deliberately poisoning other intelligent beings was impossible for her to understand. "Perhaps we should stop," Hyunwoo suggested. "This is clearly too much for the team." "Commander," Bo Ram said quietly, "I found something else. These are not the only wars humans have fought. There was something called World War II that was even bigger." "Bigger? How could it be bigger?" Bo Ram's hands shook as she pulled up new files. More humans died in the Second World War than in the First, and they developed new weapons. Much worse weapons. The screen showed images of human cities, but these cities were burning. Huge fires spread everywhere, buildings fell down, humans ran through the streets carrying whatever they could save. They attacked cities full of civilians, Tamin said, his voice full of disbelief. Not just soldiers, but families, children. New images showed human aircraft flying high above cities. Small objects fell from the aircraft. When the objects hit the ground, entire city blocks disappeared in massive explosions. Those are bombs, Ji-hoon explained. Humans developed ways to attack from great distances. They could destroy whole areas without their soldiers ever getting close. Hyun-woo felt sick. Every intelligent race he knew followed certain rules, even in their ancient conflicts. No one attacked children or families. No one destroyed entire cities. These humans seemed to have no such limits. Wait, Bo-Ram said, reading more translated text. It gets worse, much worse. She showed them documents about something humans called concentration camps. The team read in horror about systematic killing of millions of humans based on their religion, race, or beliefs. It was organized murder on a scale none of them could comprehend. They killed their own species in factories, So Young said from the doorway. She had returned but looked very pale. Like they were processing materials instead of living beings. Why? Tamin asked. What possible reason could they have? The documents they found offered explanations, but none of them made sense to the alien team. Humans killed each other over resources, territory, religion, political ideas, and sometimes just because they looked different. This is not normal intelligent behavior, Hyun-woo said finally. Every race goes through a violent period early in their development, but these humans are technologically advanced. They should have moved beyond this stage long ago. Ji-hoon pulled up more recent files. Commander, I do not think they have moved beyond it. These records go up to very recent times. They are still fighting wars. The screen showed color images now, much clearer than the old black and white footage. Human soldiers wore different uniforms and carried more advanced weapons, but they were still fighting, still killing each other. How many wars have they fought? Hyun-woo asked. I stopped counting at 100 major conflicts, Ji-hoon replied, and those are just the big ones. There are thousands of smaller wars and battles. Bo-Ram found records of human weapons development. The team watched in growing horror as humans created more and more efficient ways to kill. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities with one bomb. They had weapons that spread disease. They had weapons that attacked from space. They have turned killing into a science, Tamin observed. Each war teaches them to be better at the next war. So Young pointed at the screen. Look at their faces. Even in these terrible places, fighting these horrible wars, they do not look afraid. She was right. In many images, human soldiers looked determined, even confident. Some were smiling. They did not act like beings forced into violence. They acted like violence was natural to them. I need to report this to the council, Hyun-woo said quietly. But I am not sure how to explain what we have found. What do we tell them? Bo-Ram asked. That we found a new intelligent race. But they spend most of their time killing each other. That is exactly what we tell them, Hyun-woo replied. The council needs to know what kind of beings these humans really are. As the team prepared their preliminary report, they all had the same thought. Every other intelligent race they had met was peaceful and reasonable. If humans ever developed space travel and met other races, what would happen? Would they try to make friends? Or would they treat aliens the same way they treated each other? Outside, the stars seemed less friendly than before. Somewhere out there was a blue planet full of beings who had made war into an art form. And someday, those beings might come looking for new worlds to conquer. 3 days had passed since the team first discovered human warfare. Hyunwoo noticed that his research room felt different now. The walls seemed darker. The cheerful hum of computers sounded ominous. Even the stars outside looked cold and threatening. So-young had submitted her resignation that morning. She could not continue studying a race that deliberately hurt children and families. Her people believed all intelligent life was precious. The human way of war went against everything she had been taught since birth. "I cannot do this any more," she had told Hyunwoo before leaving. "Every night I dream about those burning cities. My mind keeps trying to understand why they would do such things. But there is no logic to it. Only cruelty." Now the team was down to 4 members. Boram sat at her station, but her silver skin had lost all its shine. She barely spoke anymore. Taemin obsessively took notes about human military tactics, as if understanding them might make the horror go away. Ji-hoon kept digging deeper into the human archives, though each new discovery made him look sicker. "I found more footage from the Second World War," Ji-hoon announced. His voice was flat, emotionless. "It shows something they called the Pacific Theater." The main screen lit up with images of humans fighting on small islands covered in jungle. But this was different from the trench warfare they had seen before. These humans moved quickly through dense vegetation, using the plants and terrain to hide from their enemies. They adapted their fighting style to match their environment, Taemin noted, writing frantically in his notebook. "In the mud, they dug holes. In the jungle, they become like predators hunting prey." The footage showed human soldiers moving silently through the trees. They used face paint to blend with shadows. They set traps for their enemies. They could appear from nowhere, attack, and disappear again before their opponents knew what happened. "This is not just warfare," Hyunwoo observed. "This is like watching wild animals hunt." More images followed. Humans fighting in deserts, where they learned to use sand and heat as weapons. Humans fighting in frozen mountains, where they turned ice and cold into tools of war. Humans fighting in cities, moving through buildings like they were natural habitats. "They can fight anywhere," Boram whispered. "Any environment, any condition. They just adapt." Ji-hoon pulled up records of something called island hopping campaigns. The screen showed human forces attacking fortified islands one by one. Each attack was perfectly planned. The humans would surround an island, cut off all escape routes, then systematically destroy every defender. "Look at this," Taemin said, pointing at tactical diagrams. "They do not just defeat their enemies. They study each battle and use what they learn to fight better in the next battle. Every war makes them more efficient at killing." The team watched footage of human aircraft carriers, floating cities that could project military power across vast oceans. Hundreds of aircraft launched from these ships to attack targets thousands of miles away. The coordination required was incredible. "Their logistics are amazing," Ji-hoon admitted reluctantly. "They can move armies across entire continents. They can supply millions of soldiers in hostile territory. They have turned warfare into a precise science." New footage showed the end of the Pacific War. A single human aircraft flew over a city. It dropped one bomb. When the explosion cleared, the entire city was gone. Just gone. A flat, burned wasteland where hundreds of thousands of people had lived. Boram made a choking sound and ran from the room. Through the walls they could hear her crying. Her people, the Zenthari, were naturally empathic. They felt the emotions of others as if they were their own. Being exposed to so much human violence was like being tortured. "That is an atomic weapon," Taemin read from the files. "They split apart the basic building blocks of matter to create explosive force. How many people died? Hyun-woo asked, though he did not want to know. In that city? About 200,000, Ji-hoon replied. But Commander, they used another atomic bomb on a different city just 3 days later. The screen showed the second atomic bombing. Another city, another flash of light, another wasteland. Hundreds of thousands more dead in an instant. They used the most terrible weapon ever created, Hyun-woo said slowly. Not once, but twice. And they used it on cities full of civilians. The files say they did it to end the war quickly, Taemin offered. They believed it would save lives by preventing a longer conflict. They destroyed 2 cities to save lives? Hyun-woo could not understand the logic. What kind of beings think this way? Ji-hoon continued reading through the archives. Commander, the atomic weapons were not the end. They were just the beginning. After the war ended, humans kept making bigger and better atomic weapons. They made bombs that could destroy entire countries. The screen showed massive explosions in empty areas, human weapons tests. Each explosion was bigger than the last. Mountains disappeared. Lakes were created where land used to be. The power these humans controlled was beyond anything the galactic community had ever imagined. Why do they need such powerful weapons? Hyun-woo asked. The war was over. They were preparing for the next war, Taemin replied, reading from his notes. It seems they believe conflict is inevitable, so they always prepare for future battles. Bo-ram returned to the room, her face wet with tears. I translated more of their communications, she said in a broken voice. During their wars, they broadcast reports to their civilian population. The people at home celebrated military victories. Children played games pretending to be soldiers. They made entertainment programs about their wars. They enjoy it, Hyun-woo realized with horror. Fighting and killing is not something they are forced to do. It is something they actually enjoy. Some of them, yes, Bo-ram confirmed. But others seem to hate it. Their literature and art from wartime shows both pride and horror. They are conflicted about their own nature. Ji-hoon pulled up more recent files. The atomic weapons led to something called the Cold War. 2 groups of humans spent decades preparing to destroy each other completely. They built enough atomic weapons to kill every living thing on their planet several times over. They almost destroyed themselves? Taemin asked. Multiple times, Ji-hoon confirmed. There are records of incidents where they came very close to launching all their atomic weapons at once. Only luck and a few wise individuals prevented total destruction. The team sat in silence, trying to process what they had learned. These humans were not just violent. They were brilliantly violent. They could adapt their fighting to any environment. They could organize massive military campaigns across their entire planet. They could create weapons powerful enough to destroy worlds. And most terrifying of all, they seemed to be constantly preparing for wars that had not happened yet. What are we going to tell the council? Bo-ram asked quietly. Hyun-woo looked at the dark screen, thinking about burning cities and atomic explosions. We tell them the truth. We found a race of beings who have spent their entire history perfecting the art of killing, and now they are starting to look toward the stars. Outside the station, space seemed less empty than before. Somewhere in that darkness was a blue planet full of creatures who had turned violence into both science and art. And if they ever developed faster-than-light travel, every peaceful world in the galaxy might be in danger. A week had passed since So-young left the team. Her empty workstation served as a constant reminder of what they were dealing with. Hyun-woo had requested a replacement analyst, but the council was taking time to find someone willing to study human warfare. Word was spreading through the galactic community about their disturbing discoveries. The new analyst finally arrived on a supply ship from the core worlds. His name was In-ho, a young Valerian like Tae-min, but with lighter gray fur and nervous eyes. He seemed eager to help until Ji-hoon showed him the basic overview of human military history. "This cannot be real," In-ho said after viewing footage from the World Wars. "You are showing me fictional entertainment programs, correct?" "I wish we were," Hyun-woo replied sadly. "But every piece of evidence confirms these are historical records." In-ho spent his first day reviewing the files the team had already studied. By evening, he looked sick. By the second day, he was asking about transfer procedures. But Hyun-woo convinced him to stay long enough to help with their current project, analyzing modern human warfare. "The weapons we have seen so far are from decades ago," Hyun-woo explained to the group. "We need to understand what humans are capable of now." Ji-hoon had been working day and night to access more recent military archives. What he found was somehow worse than anything they had seen before. Modern human warfare was not louder or more destructive than the old wars. It was quieter and more precise, which made it more terrifying. "They call it asymmetric warfare," Ji-hoon explained, bringing up footage on the main screen. "Small groups of humans can now do what required entire armies before." The screen showed human soldiers moving through a city at night. But something was wrong with the image. Everything looked strange and green. "What is wrong with the picture?" In-ho asked. "Nothing is wrong," Tae-min replied, reading from his notes. "They are using night vision technology. Humans cannot naturally see in the dark. So they invented machines to let them fight at night. They turned darkness into a weapon," Bo-ram added quietly. "Most races rest when their sun goes down. But humans can attack when their enemies think they are safe." The footage showed human soldiers moving like ghosts through the green-tinted world. They could see their enemies clearly, but their enemies could not see them. It was like watching invisible predators hunt unsuspecting prey. "This gives me nightmares," In-ho whispered. "They could be anywhere, watching, waiting, and we would never know." More footage followed, showing something called drone warfare. Humans could now attack their enemies from thousands of miles away using unmanned aircraft controlled by remote signals. A human sitting safely in one country could watch targets in another country through a camera, then kill them with the push of a button. "They removed themselves from the battlefield," Hyun-woo observed. "They can kill without any risk to themselves." "Look at this," Ji-hoon said, switching to another video. It showed a single missile striking a building. The explosion was small and precise, destroying only one room while leaving the rest of the building intact. "They can choose exactly what to destroy," Tae-min noted, his voice full of grudging admiration and horror. "Their weapons are so accurate, they can kill one person in a building full of people." In-ho stood up suddenly. "I request immediate transfer to another assignment," he announced. "What? Why?" Hyun-woo asked. "Because if beings exist who can kill with such precision from such distances, I do not want to be in the same galaxy with them," In-ho replied. "My people hide from danger by running away or camouflaging ourselves. But how do you hide from enemies who can see in the dark and strike from across the planet?" "Please stay just a little longer," Hyun-woo pleaded. "We need your analytical skills." In-ho reluctantly agreed to continue for a few more days. But his fear was obvious to everyone in the room. Ji-hoon accessed more recent files, showing human Special Operations Forces. These were small teams of elite soldiers trained to operate behind enemy lines. The footage showed them moving through hostile territory, gathering information, destroying targets, and disappearing without trace. A single team of 10 humans infiltrated an enemy stronghold defended by thousands, Taemin read from an after-action report. They destroyed their target and escaped with no casualties. 10 against thousands? Boram asked in disbelief. According to this, human special forces routinely operate at odds of 100 to 1 or worse, Ji-hoon confirmed. They seem to prefer being outnumbered. The team watched more footage of human special operations. The soldiers moved with incredible coordination. They could communicate without speaking, using only hand signals. They could navigate in complete darkness. They could remain motionless for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They are like a different species from the humans we saw in the old wars, In-ho observed. These ones are more like machines designed for killing. Not machines, Taemin corrected. More like predators. They think like hunters. New footage showed human soldiers in urban environments, fighting room by room through buildings. They had techniques for every situation: how to clear hallways, how to check corners, how to move safely through spaces where enemies might be hiding. They have turned their own cities into battlefields, Hyun-woo realized. They know how to fight in every environment their species has ever lived in. Commander, Ji-hoon said hesitantly, there is something else. Something about cyber warfare. Cyber warfare? Boram asked. They have learned to attack through their communication networks, Ji-hoon explained. They can destroy an enemy's infrastructure without ever sending soldiers. They can turn off power, disable transportation, crash economic systems, all from computers. The screen showed examples of cyber attacks. Traffic control systems failed, causing chaos in busy cities. Power plants shut down, leaving entire regions in darkness. Military communication networks went silent just when armies needed them most. They can attack the very technology that modern civilization depends on, Taemin noted. Without firing a single shot, they can reduce an advanced society to primitive conditions. In-ho was shaking now. They have weaponized everything, he said. Darkness, distance, technology, even information itself. Is there anything these humans cannot turn into a weapon? I do not think so, Hyun-woo replied honestly. Every tool they create, every technology they develop, they immediately consider how it could be used for warfare. Boram pulled up communication intercepts from human military units. Listen to how they talk during combat, she said, playing. Audio recordings. The team heard human voices, calm and professional even in the middle of battles. The soldiers gave precise reports, coordinated complex maneuvers, and adapted to changing situations without panic or confusion. They treat warfare like a job, Boram observed, like they are simply solving technical problems. Because that is exactly what they are doing, Taemin replied. To humans, war is not an emotional response or a failure of diplomacy. It is a skill to be mastered. Ji-hoon found records of human military training programs. Young humans spent years learning how to fight in every possible environment and situation. They studied the tactics of their enemies. They practiced until their responses became automatic. They trained their children to be soldiers, In-ho said with horror. Even their civilian schools include basic military education. Not all of them, Ji-hoon clarified. But many human cultures consider military training an important part of growing up. The final piece of footage showed human soldiers in full combat gear, moving through a desert at night. They wore advanced armor and carried weapons that looked like science fiction. Night vision, thermal imaging, satellite communication, precision, targeting. Every advantage technology could provide. "This is not warfare as we understand it," Hyun-woo said finally. "This is something completely different. These humans do not just fight wars. They have evolved into the perfect military species." In-ho submitted his transfer request that evening. "I am sorry, Commander," he said as he prepared to leave, "but I cannot study a race that has made killing into such an exact science. My people believe in running away from danger. These humans seem to seek it out." As In-ho's transport ship departed, the remaining team members watched it disappear into the stars. They were now down to just 3 researchers, and even they were not sure how much more they could handle. But they had to continue. The galaxy needed to know what was coming. The research station felt empty with only 3 team members left. Hyun-woo knew they needed help understanding the human mind, so he requested a xenopsychologist from the Galactic Core. The council agreed, sending Dr. Mi-jin, a specialist in studying alien behavior patterns. Mi-jin was a Catherian, a race known for their ability to understand the thoughts and motivations of other species. Her people were tall and thin with large heads and enormous eyes that seemed to see right into your soul. She had studied the psychology of every known intelligent race in the galaxy. "I have read your preliminary reports," Mi-jin said as she settled into So-young's old workstation. "I must admit I am skeptical. The behavior you describe does not match any known patterns of intelligent development." "We felt the same way at first," Hyun-woo replied. "Please examine the evidence yourself." Mi-jin spent 2 days reviewing all the footage and files the team had collected. She watched the trench warfare of World War I, the atomic bombings of World War II, and the precision strikes of modern conflicts. But unlike the other team members, she did not seem horrified. Instead, she appeared fascinated. "This is remarkable," she announced on the 3rd day. "These humans have developed psychological adaptations I have never seen before." "What kind of adaptations?" Tae-min asked, looking up from his notes. "They have something they call unit cohesion," Mi-jin explained, pulling up footage of human soldiers in combat. "Watch how they behave when their companions are threatened." The screen showed a group of human soldiers under attack. When one of them was wounded, the others immediately risked their own lives to rescue him. They exposed themselves to enemy fire, carried their injured companion to safety, and continued fighting even harder than before. "Most intelligent species have self-preservation as their primary instinct," Mi-jin continued. "But humans can override that instinct when protecting members of their group. They will die for strangers if those strangers are part of their military unit." "That makes no evolutionary sense," Boram said. "How can a species survive if individuals sacrifice themselves for others?" "Because it makes the group stronger," Mi-jin replied. "A human soldier knows that his companions will risk everything to save him, so he fights without fear. This makes the entire unit more effective." She showed them more footage, this time focusing on the faces of human soldiers. During battle, instead of the terror and panic you might expect, many looked calm, focused, even confident. "They are not afraid," Ji-hoon observed with amazement. "Some are afraid," Mi-jin corrected. "But they have learned to function despite their fear. They have cultural and psychological mechanisms that allow them to perform complex tasks while under extreme stress." More examples followed. human soldiers completing delicate technical operations while explosions went off around them. Military leaders making strategic decisions while their positions were under attack. Medics treating wounded soldiers in the Abai, middle of active battlefields. They have weaponized their own minds, Mi-Jin concluded. They can think clearly in situations that would paralyze other species with terror. She brought up recordings of human military communications during battles. The voices were calm, professional, almost boring. Soldiers reported enemy positions, requested supplies, and coordinated attacks as if they were discussing the weather. Listen to their language, Mi-Jin instructed. They use technical terms and code words that remove emotion from combat. Instead of saying, kill the enemy, they say, neutralize the target. Instead of dead soldiers, they say, casualties. They have created a vocabulary that makes violence seem routine. Taemin nodded understanding. They psychologically distance themselves from what they are doing. Exactly. And it works both ways, Mi-Jin continued. When they want to motivate their soldiers to fight harder, they use emotional language. They call enemies monsters or animals. They say they are fighting for freedom or justice, rather than territory or resources. The team watched more footage, but now they paid attention to human psychology rather than human weapons. They saw soldiers who seemed genuinely to care about their missions. Many appeared to believe they were fighting for important causes. They convinced themselves that their wars are necessary, Bo-Ram realized. They are not just killing for resources. They are killing for ideas. Which makes them much more dangerous, Mi-Jin agreed. A species that fights only for survival will stop fighting when the threat is gone. But a species that fights for beliefs will never stop because beliefs cannot be destroyed with weapons. Mi-Jin showed them human military training footage. Young humans learned not just how to use weapons, but how to think like soldiers. They practiced making quick decisions under pressure. They learned to follow orders without question. They were taught to see enemies as legitimate targets rather than fellow intelligent beings. They systematically reshape their own minds, Mi-Jin explained. They take young individuals with normal psychological development and turn them into efficient killers. And somehow, they do this without destroying their humanity entirely. The screen showed human soldiers during breaks in fighting. They shared food, told jokes, showed pictures of their families. They seemed like normal, caring individuals, until the fighting started again. How can they switch back and forth like that? Hyun-woo asked. Compartmentalization, Mi-Jin replied. They can separate different aspects of their personality. The part that cares about family and friends does not interfere with the part that kills enemies. Most species cannot do this without severe psychological damage. Do humans suffer psychological damage from warfare? Bo-Ram asked. Yes, but not as much as other species would, Mi-Jin answered. They have what they call post-traumatic stress, but their brains are remarkably adaptable. Many human soldiers return from wars and live normal, productive lives. She showed them human veterans, former soldiers who had returned to civilian society. Many had become teachers, doctors, engineers, artists. They had families and contributed positively to their communities. They can be killers one day and healers the next, Taemin observed. The same individual can destroy and create. Because they do not see warfare as inherently evil, Mi-Jin explained. To humans, violence is simply a tool. They can use it when necessary and put it away when it is not needed. The team studied human military culture more deeply. They found songs about warfare, stories celebrating military heroes, ceremonies honoring fallen soldiers. But they also found human art that showed the horror and tragedy of war. They are conflicted about their own nature, Mijin concluded. Part of them glorifies warfare, and part of them mourns its necessity. This internal conflict may be what keeps them from becoming completely destructive. Or it may be what makes them so good at it, Hyunwoo suggested. They understand both the glory and the cost of war. Mijin brought up the most disturbing discovery of all. Human children played war games. They had toys shaped like weapons. Their entertainment programs often featured military themes. From an early age, humans were exposed to the concept of organized violence. They are preparing their young for warfare even during peacetime, she observed. Other species teach their children to avoid conflict. Humans teach their children to win conflicts. The team watched human children playing soldiers, running around with toy weapons, pretending to attack imaginary enemies. The children seemed to enjoy these games. They were not being forced to play war. They chose to. It is instinctive, Mijin said quietly. For humans, the capacity for warfare is not learned behavior. It is built into their basic psychology. Bo-Ram had been quiet for most of the session, but now she spoke up. Doctor, in your professional opinion, could humans ever become peaceful like the rest of us? Mijin was silent for a long moment, considering her answer. I believe individual humans can choose peace, she finally said. But as a species, their entire evolutionary development has been shaped by constant conflict. Warfare is not something they do. It is something they are. She brought up one final piece of evidence. Human military planners were already designing weapons and tactics for fighting in space, despite never having met another intelligent species. They were preparing for wars that might never happen, against enemies they had never seen. They assume conflict is inevitable, Mijin concluded. Even when reaching for the stars, they bring their weapons with them. The research room fell silent. As the team absorbed this information, they had hoped to find evidence that humans could change, that their warlike nature was just a phase in their development. Instead, they found a species that had evolved specifically for warfare. What do we recommend to the council? Hyunwoo asked. Mijin looked at the dark screen, then at each team member in turn. We recommend extreme caution, she said. These humans are not evil, but they are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. If they develop faster than light, travel and find us, we need to be prepared for anything. Outside the station, the stars seemed less bright than before. Somewhere among them was a world full of beings who had turned violence into both an art and a science, and they were looking toward the stars with weapons in their hands. The Great Council Chamber was a massive sphere floating in space near the galactic core. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered here when important decisions needed to be made. Today, the chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates took their seats to hear Hyunwoo's report about the humans. Hyunwoo stood at the center of the chamber, feeling very small under the enormous dome. Around him, in curved rows that rose up like a bowl, sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Each species had their own section, and each delegate wore the formal robes of their people. The council speaker was Chul-Su, an elder Altarian with skin so pale it was almost white. His voice carried easily through the chamber's advanced acoustics. Commander Hyunwoo, we have read your preliminary reports with great concern. Please present your findings to the full council. Hyunwoo activated the central holographic display. Images of human warfare filled the space above the delegates' heads. Many had never seen anything like it before. There were gasps of shock and horror as the footage began to play. "Honorable delegates," Hyunwoo began, "what you are seeing is not fiction or aberrant behavior. These are historical records of a species that has spent its entire development perfecting the art of warfare." The chamber fell silent, except for a few uncomfortable sounds from delegates who had never witnessed such violence. Hyunwoo continued his presentation, showing the progression from primitive human conflicts through modern precision warfare. Ye-jin, the Zenthari representative, stood up before the presentation was finished. Her silver skin had turned almost gray with distress. "Speaker Chul-soo, I must object to this display of violence in our peaceful chamber. Surely there has been some mistake." "I wish there had been," Hyunwoo replied, "but we have verified these records through multiple sources. Everything you see is real." Dong-hyun, the military coordinator for the council, leaned forward in his seat. He was a Valerian like Tai-min, but older and more serious. "Commander, you say this species has never encountered other intelligent life. What do they fight about?" "Everything," Hyunwoo answered honestly. "Resources, territory, religion, political systems, racial differences, economic theories. They have fought wars over ideas that most species would resolve through discussion." The holographic display showed human soldiers from different time periods. Ancient warriors with metal swords, medieval knights in armor, modern soldiers with advanced weapons. The technology changed, but the activity remained the same. "They have been fighting continuously for thousands of years," Hyunwoo explained. "Each war teaches them to fight more efficiently in the next war. They treat warfare like a science, constantly experimenting and improving." Bong-soo, the delegate from the peaceful Kethlari people, spoke up. "But surely they must have some conflicts that end in peace negotiations. Some disputes they resolve without violence?" "They do," Hyunwoo admitted. "But even their peace negotiations are often backed by the threat of force. They have a saying, 'Speak softly and carry a big stick.' They believe diplomacy works better when supported by military strength." The chamber erupted in confused conversations as delegates tried to understand this concept. How could peaceful negotiation require weapons? The idea made no sense to species that had solved conflicts through compromise for millennia. Mi-jin joined Hyunwoo at the center of the chamber. "Honored delegates, I have conducted psychological analysis of human behavior. These beings are not mentally ill or defective. They have simply evolved along a different path than the rest of us." "What do you mean?" asked Sung-min, the elderly delegate from the Catherian homeworld. "Humans developed in an environment with constant threats," Mi-jin explained. "They competed with dangerous predators, natural disasters, and resource scarcity. This shaped their psychology to see conflict as normal and inevitable." The display showed images of Earth, a world that looked beautiful, but was apparently full of dangerous animals, violent weather, and unstable geology. Volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, and predators that could kill even adult humans. "Their entire planet tried to kill them," Mi-jin continued. "So they learned to kill it back. They turned every challenge into a weapon, every threat into an opportunity to become stronger." Ye-jin stood again, her voice shaking with emotion. "Speaker, I formally request that this presentation be ended. My people cannot bear to witness more of this violence." "I understand your distress," Chul-soo replied gently, "but we must understand what we are dealing with. Commander, what are your recommendations?" Hyunwoo took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been dreading. Honored delegates, I believe we face three options. First, we could attempt diplomatic contact and try to guide humans toward peaceful development. That sounds reasonable, said Wu Jin, the young delegate from the Altarian colonies. We have successfully introduced peace to primitive species before. With respect, Hyun Woo replied, humans are not primitive. They are technologically advanced and psychologically sophisticated. Any attempt at contact would require revealing our existence, which could trigger their military response instincts. Military response to first contact? Dong-hyun leaned forward with interest. You mean they would see us as threats? Possibly, Mi-jin answered. Human psychology assumes that any powerful unknown force could be dangerous. Their first instinct would be to prepare for conflict even while attempting diplomatic contact. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. Every other species in the galaxy had greeted first contact with joy and celebration. The idea of greeting new friends with weapons was incomprehensible. What is your second option? Chul-Su asked. Complete quarantine, Hyun-Woo replied. We establish a perimeter around their solar system and prevent any human expansion into space. We wait for them to either destroy themselves or evolve beyond their violent nature. How long would we need to maintain such a quarantine? Asked Jin'e, the delegate from the Outer Rim territories. Unknown, Hyun-Woo admitted. Possibly centuries, possibly forever. Humans show no signs of becoming less violent as they advance. If anything, they become more efficient at violence. The third option was the one nobody wanted to discuss. Hyun-Woo hesitated before speaking. The final option would be preemptive action to prevent humans from developing interstellar travel. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several delegates stood up in protest. The Galactic Council had never taken aggressive action against any species, no matter how primitive or dangerous. You are suggesting genocide, Yejin accused, her voice full of horror. I am presenting options, Hyun-Woo replied firmly. I do not advocate for any particular choice, but the Council must understand what humans represent. If they develop faster than light travel and encounter another species, the results could be catastrophic. Dong-hyun activated his personal display, showing tactical projections. Commander, in your assessment, how would humans react to discovering other intelligent species? Based on their history, they would probably try diplomatic contact first, Hyun-Woo answered, but they would simultaneously prepare for war. If negotiations failed, or if they perceived any threat, they would likely respond with force. And their military capabilities? Dong-hyun pressed. Beyond anything we have ever encountered, Hyun-Woo admitted. They have weapons that could destroy planets. They have tactics that could allow small forces to defeat much larger armies. And they have the psychological conditioning to use both without hesitation. The chamber fell silent again. These peaceful species had never needed to consider such possibilities. Their own military forces were designed for defense and peacekeeping, not conquest. Chul-Su called for a recess to allow delegates to discuss the presentation with their home governments. As the chamber emptied, small groups of delegates gathered to talk in hushed voices. Many looked frightened. Others seemed angry. A few appeared fascinated by the strategic implications. Hyun-Woo remained at the center of the empty chamber, looking up at the stars visible through the transparent dome. Somewhere out there was a blue planet full of beings who had turned warfare into an art form, and someday those beings would reach for the stars. The council had to decide what to do about it, but every option seemed to lead to the same conclusion. The peaceful galaxy they had known for thousands of years was about to change forever. When the session resumed the next day, the mood in the chamber was grim. Delegate after delegate stood to express their concerns, their fears, and their complete inability to understand how such a species could exist. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. 6 species voted for quarantine. 4 voted for attempted diplomatic contact. 2 species simply abstained, saying they could not make such a momentous decision. But the most shocking result was not the vote itself. It was what happened afterward. Representatives from half the council's military services submitted their resignations. They stated they could not serve in any organization that might someday face humans in battle. The galaxy's age of innocence was over. Somewhere in the darkness, humanity continued to grow stronger, never knowing they had already changed the fate of countless worlds. 3 months had passed since the council's vote for quarantine. The research station felt like a ghost ship, with only Ji-hoon and Tae-min remaining from the original team. Hyun-woo spent most of his time coordinating with military planners who were designing the quarantine perimeter around Earth's solar system. But the 2 researchers continued their work, diving deeper into human files with the grim determination of archaeologists uncovering ancient horrors. Ji-hoon had barely slept in weeks. His dark blue skin had grown pale, and his large eyes were constantly red from staring at computer screens. But he could not stop. Every new file revealed something worse about human military capability. "Commander," Ji-hoon called from his workstation, "I found something that changes everything." Hyun-woo looked up from his tactical reports. "What now?" "The quarantine may not work," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Humans are not just preparing for interstellar travel, they are preparing for interstellar warfare." Tae-min rolled his chair over to Ji-hoon's station. The furry Valerian had lost weight over the past months, and his usual cheerful manner had been replaced by obsessive note-taking. "Show us," he said. Ji-hoon activated the main display screen. New images appeared. Not historical footage this time, but recent human military projects. The images showed massive construction sites in space around Earth, where humans were building structures unlike anything the galactic community had ever seen. "Those are weapons platforms," Hyun-woo realized with growing horror. "They are militarizing their orbital space." "Not just orbital space," Ji-hoon corrected. "Look at this." The screen showed human spacecraft, not the simple exploration vessels they had launched before, but heavily armed military ships. Each vessel carried weapons powerful enough to destroy cities. Multiple vessels operated together in coordinated formations. "They have created a space navy," Tae-min observed, writing frantically in his notebook. "But they have never encountered space-based enemies. Who are they planning to fight?" Ji-hoon pulled up classified human military documents that he had managed to decrypt. "They call them xenobiology defense protocols. They are military plans for fighting alien species they have never met." The screen showed detailed tactical analyses. Human strategists had considered how to fight enemies with different physical capabilities, different technologies, different psychological profiles. They had developed weapon systems specifically designed to be effective against unknown alien biology. "They are planning to fight us," Hyun-woo said in amazement. "They do not even know we exist, but they are already designing ways to kill us." "It gets worse," Ji-hoon continued. "They have theoretical weapon systems that could sterilize entire planets. They call it Planetary pacification technology. The display showed technical diagrams for weapons that could poison atmospheres, destroy ecosystems, or render worlds uninhabitable. These were not weapons for fighting armies. They were weapons for eliminating entire civilizations. Why would they need such things? Taemin asked. What threat could justify destroying entire worlds? Any threat, Ji-hoon replied, reading from the classified documents. Their military doctrine assumes that any technologically advanced alien species could pose an existential threat to humanity. Their response is to develop the capability to eliminate any such threat completely. Hyun-woo felt sick. The Council's quarantine plan assumed humans would remain contained within their solar system until they outgrew their violent nature. But these files suggested humans were already preparing to carry their violence to the stars. How long until they develop faster-than-light travel? Hyun-woo asked. Ji-hoon consulted his calculations. Based on their current rate of technological advancement, probably less than 50 years, maybe as little as 20. And their military preparations are advancing even faster than their civilian technology, Taemin replied. They are spending enormous resources on space-based weapons development. It appears to be a higher priority than exploration or colonization. The screen showed more classified files. Human scientists were studying theoretical physics not to explore the universe, but to find new ways to project military power across interstellar distances. They were researching exotic matter and energy manipulation with the goal of creating weapons that could function in space combat. Look at this, Ji-hoon said, highlighting a section of text. They have contingency plans for first contact scenarios, but every single plan includes military response options. The human first contact protocols were unlike anything the galactic community had ever imagined. Instead of assuming peaceful intentions, humans planned for every possible level of threat. They had responses ranging from diplomatic negotiation, backed by military force, to immediate preemptive strikes if they perceived hostile intent. They assume any species capable of interstellar travel must be militarily advanced, Taemin noted. They believe peaceful species could not survive long enough to develop such technology. Because they could not, Hyun-woo realized. On their world, only the strongest and most aggressive species survived. They assume the entire universe operates the same way. More files revealed the scope of human military planning. They had designed modular space weapons that could be quickly manufactured and deployed. They had trained military units specifically for zero-gravity combat. They had developed communication systems that could coordinate military operations across multiple star systems. They are not planning to explore space, Ji-hoon concluded. They are planning to conquer it. The most chilling discovery came in the form of human strategic planning documents. Military theorists had analyzed potential alien psychology and developed tactics for fighting species with different mental and physical capabilities. They have battle plans for fighting enemies like us, Taemin said, reading over the files. Look, Protocol 7, engagement with technologically advanced pacifist species. They have specific tactics for defeating peaceful civilizations. The screen showed human analysis of how to fight enemies who were technologically sophisticated, but had no military experience. The tactics were ruthless and efficient. Target civilian infrastructure, destroy communication networks, eliminate government centers, then demand surrender. They know we exist, Hyun-woo said suddenly. What? Ji-hoon looked up in alarm. Not specifically, Hyun-woo clarified, but they know species like us must exist. They have analyzed galactic development patterns and concluded that older civilizations would likely be peaceful and technologically advanced. They are preparing to fight exactly the kind of species we actually are. More files revealed human. Military exercises conducted in deep space, where their forces practiced coordinated attacks on hypothetical alien installations. They had developed specialized equipment for fighting in various planetary environments. They had even created weapons designed to be effective against energy-based life forms, crystalline beings, and other exotic alien physiologies that existed only in their imagination. Their imagination is terrifyingly accurate, Tae-min observed. Several of these theoretical alien types match actual species in our galaxy. The final set of files was the most disturbing. Human military planners had calculated the resources required for galactic conquest. They had drawn up preliminary strategies for subjugating multiple star systems. They had even designed administrative structures for governing conquered alien populations. This is not defensive planning, Hyun-woo said quietly. This is preparation for empire. Commander, Ji-hoon said, his voice barely a whisper. There is one more thing. I found references to something called the Great Filter Protocol. What is that? Ji-hoon pulled up the final classified document. It outlined human theories about why the galaxy seemed empty of intelligent life. Their conclusion was that some great catastrophe or conflict must have eliminated most advanced civilizations. Their response was to ensure that humanity would be the species that survived the next such event. They believe the galaxy is a battlefield, Tae-min translated. They think every species is ultimately in competition for survival, and only the strongest will inherit the stars. So they are making sure they will be the strongest, Hyun-woo concluded. The three researchers sat in silence, staring at the evidence spread across their screens. They had discovered that humans were not just a violent species. They were a species specifically evolved for galactic warfare. Everything they had built, everything they planned, was designed around the assumption that space would be contested territory. We have to warn the Council, Hyun-woo said finally. Warn them of what? Ji-hoon asked. That quarantine will not work? That humans are already preparing to break out of any containment we establish? That they have weapons specifically designed to fight species like us? All of that, Hyun-woo replied. The Council based their decision on the assumption that humans were simply a violent, primitive species that might eventually mature into peaceful, spacefaring citizens. But these files prove that humans see space as a war zone and themselves as the species destined to dominate it. Tae-min looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, they are building weapons to use against us. And they do not even know we exist yet. What happens when they find us? Ji-hoon wondered, aloud. The final council session was scheduled for dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Hyun-woo stood in his quarters aboard the research station, looking out at the stars one last time before delivering his concluding report. In a few hours, he would present findings that would change the galaxy forever. After today, the peaceful confederation of worlds that had existed for millennia would know they were no longer alone, and that their new neighbors were the most dangerous species ever discovered. Ji-hoon and Tae-min worked at their stations, preparing the final data packages. Both researchers looked exhausted. Their investigation had taken them to places no civilized mind should go, into the tactical. Thinking of a species that had weaponized everything from atomic particles to psychological warfare. The presentation is ready, Commander, Ji-hoon announced. His voice was flat and emotionless. Months of studying human warfare had drained all feeling from him. All files are verified and cross-referenced. Are you sure we should show them everything? Tae-min asked. His notebook was filled with thousands of pages of observations about human military capability. Some of these weapon systems, I am not certain the Council can psychologically handle the knowledge that such things exist. They need to know, Hyunwoo replied firmly. The age of galactic innocence is over. We can no longer pretend that intelligence automatically leads to peace. The transport to the council chamber was quiet. None of the three researchers spoke during the journey. They were about to deliver news that would shatter every assumption their civilization had ever made about the nature of life in the universe. The great council chamber was packed. Word had spread through the galactic community about the human. Discovery and representatives from dozens of species had come to hear the final report. The mood was tense. Everyone knew that today would mark a turning point in galactic history. Speaker Chol-Soo called the session to order. His usually calm voice carried an edge of worry. Commander Hyunwoo, please present your final analysis of the species known as humans. Hyunwoo activated the central display. Instead of showing warfare footage this time, he began with a simple star chart. A small red dot marked Earth's location in the outer rim of the galaxy. Honored delegates, he began. 6 months ago, we thought this system contained a primitive species that might someday join our peaceful community. Today, I must report that we were wrong about everything. The display showed human space installations, weapons platforms, military shipyards, and training facilities scattered throughout their solar system. The scale of construction was enormous, representing a military buildup unlike anything seen in galactic history. Humans are not preparing to explore space, Hyunwoo continued. They are preparing to conquer it. They have developed weapons systems specifically designed to fight alien species they have never encountered. They have battle plans for scenarios that exist only in their imagination, and their imagination is terrifyingly accurate. Gasps echoed through the chamber as delegates saw the scope of human military preparation. The weapons platforms alone could destroy entire fleets. The manufacturing capability suggested humans could produce military equipment faster than most species could build civilian infrastructure. How is this possible? Asked Ye-jin, the Zenthari representative. They have never fought a space war. How can they be so advanced at space warfare? Because they treat war as a science, Hyunwoo explained. Every human conflict teaches them principles that apply to future conflicts. They have spent thousands of years learning how to fight more efficiently, and now they are applying those lessons to interstellar warfare. Mi-jin stepped forward to address the psychological aspects. Delegates, humans do not see peace as the natural state of the universe. They see conflict as inevitable and prepare accordingly. In their minds, any species capable of interstellar travel must be a potential military threat. The display showed human first contact protocols. Every single scenario included military contingencies. Even their most optimistic diplomatic plans were backed by overwhelming force. They assume we are as dangerous as they are, Mi-jin continued. They will approach any first contact situation expecting violence, and they will be prepared to deliver it. Dong-hyun, the military coordinator, leaned forward. Commander, in your assessment, could our current defense forces repel a human attack? The question everyone feared had been asked. Hyunwoo took a deep breath before answering. No, Coordinator. Our military forces are designed for peacekeeping and defense against natural disasters. Humans have weapons specifically designed to destroy opposition forces quickly and completely. What about our technological advantages? Pressed another delegate. Surely our advanced science gives us some edge. Human military technology is advancing faster than their civilian technology, Taemin replied from his position beside the A display. They prioritize weapons development above all other research. In some areas, they may already be ahead of us. The chamber fell silent as this information sank in. The galactic community had always assumed that their advanced age and peaceful development gave them overwhelming technological superiority over any primitive species they might encounter. The idea that humans could be competitive or even superior in military technology was almost incomprehensible. "What are our options?" Speaker Chul-Su asked quietly. "We have run extensive simulations," Hyun-Woo replied. "Quarantine will not work. Humans are already developing the technology to break any containment we could establish. Diplomatic contact carries enormous risks because humans will assume we are either allies or enemies, with nothing in between." "And the third option?" Chul-Su's voice was barely audible. "Would require us to become something we are not," Hyun-Woo said carefully. "We would need to develop military capabilities we have never possessed and psychological conditioning we have never needed. We would need to become warriors." The words hung in the air like a poison cloud. Every species in the galactic community had evolved beyond warfare millennia ago. The idea of deliberately cultivating military capability went against everything they believed about intelligent development. Delegate after delegate stood to speak, but their words all carried the same message: fear, confusion, and complete inability to comprehend how to deal with a species like humanity. Some advocated for immediate military preparation. Others insisted on attempting peaceful contact. A few suggested abandoning entire sectors of space to avoid any possibility of encounter. But the most shocking moment came when Dong-hyun stood to address the chamber. The old military coordinator had served the galactic community for centuries, managing peacekeeping forces and disaster response units. "Speaker Chul-Su," he said formally, "I hereby submit my resignation from all military positions within the Galactic Council." Stunned silence filled the chamber. Dong-hyun continued, "I have spent my entire career believing that military force should only be used to protect the innocent and maintain peace. But humans have shown me a different kind of warfare. Warfare as conquest, warfare as expansion, warfare as a way of life. I cannot and will not prepare our forces to fight such a war." Before anyone could respond, other military leaders began standing. One by one, they announced their resignations. Fleet commanders, strategic planners, weapons designers, logistics, coordinators. Half the galactic military leadership quit rather than prepare for war with humanity. "We entered military service to protect our people," explained Admiral Subin, the Altarian fleet commander. "But fighting humans would require us to become like them. We would need to strike first, hit civilian targets, use overwhelming force without mercy. I will not order such actions, and I will not serve under commanders who would." The resignations continued. Within an hour, the galactic community had lost most of its military leadership. Those who remained looked shaken and uncertain. They had trained for defense and peacekeeping, not for the kind of warfare humans had perfected. Speaker. Chul-Su called for order, but the damage was done. The galactic military had effectively collapsed before ever encountering the human threat. "Commander Hyun-Woo," Chul-Su said finally, "what is your personal recommendation?" Hyun-Woo looked around the chamber at the frightened delegates, the resigned military officers, and the shattered remains of galactic confidence. "Speaker, I recommend that we hope we never meet them." And if we do, then we hope they are feeling merciful. The session ended with no formal resolution. The Council could not agree on a response to the human threat because every option required them to change fundamental aspects of their civilization. They could not become warriors, but they could not remain defenseless. As delegates filed out of the chamber, Hyunwoo remained at the center, staring at the star chart still displayed above. The small red dot marking Earth's location seemed to pulse like a beating heart, the heart of a species that had turned violence into an evolutionary advantage. Ji-hoon approached him quietly. "Commander, I intercepted a new transmission from Earth this morning." "What kind of transmission?" "They have just launched their first interstellar probe," Ji-hoon replied. "It is heading toward the nearest star system at a significant fraction of light speed. At this rate of development, they will achieve faster than light travel within decades, not centuries."